Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for this last LinkedIn Live of this year. It's a really exciting one because we know that the markets and crypto assets regulation is coming into application in just a week. The 30th of December is really the deadline. And now we have so many questions, we have so many opinions. We're looking forward to see how this implementation is going to go. I think from the industry perspective, but also from the regulatory perspective and from the authorities and the national competent authorities that are going to supervise MiCA. So as EUCI, we have prepared this last LinkedIn Live just as a summary to see where we are at the moment, to share a little bit of opinions about this implementation status that is we have right now. And with us right now, we have Aleš Butala, who is the Senior Legal Advisor for Bitstamp. Thank you so much for joining us, and thank you for sharing your opinion with us. I'll do just a short introduction of yourself, but please add more. Aleš was serving in one of the national competent authorities in the past in Europe, so he's also very much versed. He knows how the whole processes in national competent authorities works, and then later he joined Bitstamp as a senior legal advisor. So welcome so much, and thank you for taking the time of this like busy end of the year time to share some thoughts with us.
Well, thank you, Marina. Thank you for having me. Thank you for the nice introduction. You introduced me quite well. I don't really have anything to add, so we can proceed with the discussion, I would say.
Yes, perfect. We can start with the discussion already. For your information, we'll have 30 to 40 minutes discussing about the topic. So if you do have any questions, please write them down. We'll try to answer your questions as well. But let me just start with a really short introduction. So as I mentioned, the 30th of December is really the day where MiCA should be applicable and will be applicable. But we are facing a little bit of challenges. So first is the secondary technical process, the one that is led usually by the European Securities Market Authority and by the European Banking Authority, has been just finalized this week. We have received the last batch of regulatory technical standards and guidance from ESMA and EBA yesterday and the day before. We're looking into that. There are a few very interesting points as well, specifically the ones that are talking about reverse solicitation and the ones that are trying to help us understand better what is the difference between a crypto asset and a financial instrument. And then on the other side, we do have also national competent authorities that are the ones that are going to supervise MiCA. So there are 27 member states in the European Union, 27 different member national competent authorities, plus 3 of the ones that are in the economic zone. There are 30 different organizations, 30 different authorities that are going to supervise MiCA, and not all of them are ready, and not all of them are in a way on the same, I would say, preparedness level at this time. We know that some of the member states have not been able to finalize their internal laws, which will formally designate one of the national competent authorities to specific parts of MiCA, for example. Some member states do have, and they are collaborating with 2 different national competent authorities, a financial supervisor usually and a bank. Some have only the bank, and some have maybe like a different setup. So for now, the I would say the question that we have is, what should the projects do and what should the crypto community and the industry do if, for example, the national competent authority that they want to in a way go to and ask for a license is not ready yet, has not started officially the whole process of the application yet. So that is a very short intro, but I really wanted to hear more from Aleš. What do you think about this situation? Have you seen something like this before with your previous work within NCAs? And in a way, how worried you are about the whole process, and how the national competent authorities will react to these uncertainties that we're facing at this moment?
Well, first of all, I need to say that our competent authority, the Luxembourgish CSSF, is actually quite well prepared, and we are having productive discussions with them. But as far as my past experience go, usually when a new piece of legislation enters into force, there is always a bit of confusion on how it will be applied. The same happened with MiFID. If I remember correctly, there was quick fix. From the times when I worked for the Slovenian Ministry of Finance, I remember quite a few quick fixes that were adopted just before a respective directive or regulation was about to enter into the force. So I would say that it was natural to accept, to see some confusion. But I must say that we are doing our best to be MiCA compliant as soon as possible. As I said, we have good relations with our supervisor. We have ongoing discussions. We have submitted a draft application. We try to follow the draft level 2 acts as proposed by European authorities. We will see what they will look at the end, but I expect that the majority of what was published until now will not change. Of course, there are some open questions where further guidance would be much welcomed, but we are getting along, and to be honest, I don't really expect that there will be a big bang or something when December turns into January, and that we will all slowly start to live with MiCA, I would say. So even ESMA, for example, has said that MiCA will apply to CASPs only after a CASP gets a license, which actually gives you a bit of room or of a postponement to adapt to the rules that were, for example, just published. So I think that a bit of confusion is natural, but under considering everything at the end, the transition should be okay.
Yes, that totally makes sense in a way. As everyone knows that is following this process for such a long time, MiCA has been in a way discussed for such a long time in Brussels already, Parliament, the Commission, for 5 years. And we have also seen preliminary regulatory technical standards and guidance being issued by ESMA and EBA, like I think a year and a half ago already. So there is a kind of a process where, of course, the documents have been finalized, but the main message and the main, in a way, principles are really being there, have been there for such a long time already. So I do understand like your comment there, because even today, when ESMA just published a paper basically saying, we do understand that there's like a little bit of confusion, but of course, we have warned you already in October 2023 that you need to get ready to apply for different markets, especially if you are actively working and actively offering your services in those markets. And on the other hand, also calling for national competent authorities to kind of engage in a dialogue, maybe with their counterparts in other countries as well. So that is something that should not be new. Of course, nothing is perfect. Nothing is ever perfect, especially with such a big document and such a big regulation as ESMA, as MiCA is, and all the documents coming from ESMA and EBA. But would you maybe comment on the paper that was also issued by ESMA and the discussions around, how to best approach this situation at this moment?
You mean the transitional periods, or yeah? Well, to be honest, this one is a bit unfortunate because MiCA gives so much room to member states to decide on their transitional periods. But I accept that. I think that at least the most important or the most advanced crypto players will try to get the MiCA license as soon as possible, and that this confusion about the transitional periods will not affect us much. I would say that I also do not expect that relevant competent authorities will start their supervisory processes on the 1st of January. They need to bear in mind that in this sense, MiCA was not really perfect, and that there needs to be some time left in order to remedy the situation. Especially since the license applications can only be officially accepted when MiCA comes into force.
Yes, and I think exactly that was in a way the confusion for some of the projects that are, especially the ones that are serving the whole Europe and all covering almost all the European Union markets, because there are different transitional periods, as you mentioned, and they need to adjust to those periods if they're not going to be able to get passporting in a way process done and finalized first. So that is also why EUCI has been co-authoring a letter sending to ESMA and asking for further guidance in which direction to go and what could happen. So I think that this is also very interesting. As you mentioned, you're not expecting any type of enforcement actions in the near future. That is really reasonable. We really hope this will not happen. Also, given the fact that there's like so much work that national competent authorities have at this moment. But of course, like the community and the projects are still worried. I would assume that, you know, in the next few months, as you mentioned, we will not see a lot of enforcement actions coming up.
Yeah, I would accept the supervisory processes to be risk-based, and at least at this moment, when we know what the situation is with the transitional periods, if you do not have a local license because the transitional period in a given member state is very short, and if you are in discussions with your home regulator to get the license as soon as possible, this is not really something that should be addressed by a risk-based supervision.
Perfect. In a way, best efforts should be taken into consideration in being reasonable. So there were the rumors that we have heard as well, especially in Brussels, that, you know, would be reasonable. This has happened before, where we have not been ready until, you know, the deadlines happen, or even later, a few weeks or months. So we should not have, in a way, we will not see some critical enforcement actions. Yeah. Hopefully.
I agree totally with this conclusion. Hope.
Perfect. So, but looking into the whole process, going back to, you know, how MiCA was designed, negotiated, the secondary technical process, and now we're going to look into the implementation. If you could change anything, ideally, what would you change? What would be something that you think would, you know, the change that could benefit the situation that we are in at this moment?
Maybe I will try to clarify the relationship between MiCA and the Payment Services Directive better. Sorry, I think that my screensaver just turned on and off, so I'm sorry for that. Yeah, as I said, I would try to delineate better between the PSD and MiCA requirements when the license to provide payment services is actually needed, because there is some confusion to that effect. For example, in the past we had different discussions with different regulators, and it was never quite clear which services that a CASP offers should also be covered by PSD license. As I said, different European supervisors that we talked to had different answers to that. Besides that, I mean, when you prepare a level 1 text as MiCA, you usually do not think about details. You start to think about details when you have to implement it in practice. And that's why right now we are facing some problems, but those problems are on nitty-gritty level. They are not, I would say, conceptual and probably can be resolved with reasonable interpretations from the supervisors, and I expect that at the end this will happen. We even saw within the draft RTSs, they already corrected, or so to say in brackets, amended the level 1 text when the level 1 text was, well, so to say, not perfect. So I expect that this will be an ongoing thing as we move through MiCA implementation. But for example, a concrete thing that has surfaced in the last month for us, for example, is this ECG reporting, because during the MiCA negotiations, the understanding was that the ECG data which CASPs need to publish will be taken from white papers. But right now we don't have white papers with that information, so we needed to find new channels to get the information required. So,
and that means a lot of additional work for you besides all the other things that you have to do in order to basically be compliant to get a new license.
It's additional work and additional costs. Yes.
Okay. I'm sure that if we can go back into this, whole process of writing MiCA, that could be something that we could improve. But we are where we are, and I think that the customers and everyone involved is really taking this as a. I would say it's a good thing to see that you're really trying to, and everyone else, of course, to comply with the rules. Although the timing is not perfect, we have seen something similar as well with the. First part being applicable for stable coins and certain things. I think the stablecoin issuers did not have all the information just because the crypto as a service providers part was not applicable yet. So this kind of a timing of implementation has definitely caused some questions and some troubles trying to understand and how to basically regulate yourself, how to get the best level of compliance in order to move forward.
Yeah, but to some extent, even the regulators don't have clear answers right now. So we are in the same boat, actually.
Yeah. We're going to do all together. It's really the first time that we are regulating crypto assets. I think also worldwide, we're trying to learn more and understand how the execution of that would actually work. And I think everyone is trying their best, and over the time we'll figuring it out. We'll try to figure it out. To be honest, I was, years ago when we started with these negotiations, I was thinking, okay, everything will be more or less ready before the implementation. We'll have the answers, and then we're going to see how the enforcement actions will evolve, if there are going to be any. But now I do expect so many new, maybe nuanced information or some news coming up in the next weeks as well, maybe even months, just because of those periods being so different, grandfathering periods being so different in all the member states. So we're kind of, very much looking forward also to get more clarity, to understand more. And of course, some of the problems that we are now discussing might just might be resolved in the next weeks. But if something really comes as a problem and should be visible as a problem, from your experience before in the National Competent Authority, what would be the best approach, let's say, for the crypto community to come forward? Talk to a specific National Competent Authority and explain the problem there, talk to ESMA or EBA and discuss the issues there.
That's exactly what should happen. You should always discuss the open questions with your competent authority. This is, I think, the right way forward. And I hope that also competent authorities see this as a way to resolve the open questions.
Yeah, that makes sense. As I said before, there are 30 different authorities at this moment, and we also know that they have different capacities. There's different interests for different jurisdictions. They have experience before, some of them, because they had national laws that are regulating crypto. Some of them had only anti-money laundering laws that were basically addressing crypto. So, like, there's also the difference there. Some might be faster, some might be slower. I think the discussion within national competent authorities and with ESMA should be important as well.
Yeah, I agree. From my experience with competent authorities, they usually are friendly and ready to cooperate. I don't really have a bad experience with them. I mean, at the end, they may not give the answer that you wish that they would have given, but this is not something that you should hold against them. But usually they were ready to discuss open questions without any problems. So I would say that overall we have good experience with competent authorities.
Yeah, I would agree. From our point of view as well, we had different meetings and discussions with national competent authorities as well. Some of the recent meetings we had, they also stressed the need to collaborate with some of their maybe neighboring national competent authorities, which is like a very natural thing to do if there's like a service provider that has, the offering services in few neighboring countries. That is pretty important also to exchange information, and very eager to try to understand better also the changes in the market, try to understand better what are the updates, maybe things changing. We have also seen some warnings coming up because of the bull market and seeing that more people are engaged in the crypto activities as well. So I think they are really trying to follow the market as well, and following everything to understand better the risks that they're facing, their users are facing.
Yeah, I mean, personally, I agree with all the warnings that were issued because crypto is volatile, and at the end, the clients, and especially retail clients, they should be protected and they should know what they are getting into. This is the underlying idea of MiCA. The investors should always be able to make an informed investment decision. And I think that this is one of the core ideas and propositions that we all must follow.
I know that there have been also some discussions, even in the prior mandate with the Commission, but also with the new Commission, about certain rules or at least guidance around communication about crypto from the so-called finfluencers. So this is something also linked to what you just mentioned. We do have, as you very well know, the marketing rules on the communication around tokens as well, and disclosures in MiCA itself. But there were also ideas about, kind of looking into overseeing how the influencers are in a way communicating, influencing certain users, buyers to basically do a little bit more, maybe riskier or less risky, depending on how they communicate moves. What do you think about that?
Well, to be honest, I think that any unsubstantiated hype harms us all, and that we should be truthful when we communicate about crypto, and especially when we advertise it or market it. And influencers usually can be very aggressive and misleading, and there should be some order when we are talking about them, or they should be regulated or supervised. I mean, if they harm the retail clients, they harm us all. And it's because of the broad picture they need to be regulated.
I think we could have really seen this in a past where there is a bad actor within the industry. We are really being attacked all in a way, but also rightfully, of course, because there's been very unfortunate stories happening in the last years, as you very well know, and everyone has followed that. So in a way, I also hope that this type of regulation discussion and in a way, the community coming together and looking for best practices is also going to eradicate this I don't think there are many of like really bad players, but there were in the past, and hopefully they will not be seen anymore in the future.
Yeah, I agree. There's nothing to add to that. I agree.
We're all agreeing on the same way. So I think going forward, looking into what can we expect, let's say in the next 6 months, in the next 12 months, or maybe 18 months, I'm really using these deadlines because those are the timelines for the grandfathering clauses. A lot of member states are going to basically, start supervising MiCA, especially the crypto as a service providers that were registered in the past within the 6 months. There's a lot of member states that have this deadline. I think a third of them has the longest one, which is 18 months, within which is France and some other countries. So how do you see this, like maybe a year and a half, 2 years evolving in Europe? A lot of licenses, convergence, are we going to see any enforcement actions, more clarity? There's also a report that is supposed to come from the European Commission looking into, is there more regulation needed, or MiCA as it is enough? Do we need a MiCA too? What do you see in this like crystal ball of the future telling you?
Well, I would say that all the serious crypto players will try to get MiCA license as soon as possible and will not rely on the grandfathering period. Probably in a year or after a year, we will see some enforcement actions. I think it's unavoidable because some legacy players in the states where transitional periods are short will undoubtedly continue with their business and probably also with some practices which will probably not be MiCA compliant, and I would expect some enforcement actions. But on a general level, I would expect that within a year, all the open questions that we have right now should be resolved either in one way or another, and that the longer the MiCA will be enforced, the more clarity we will have. As far as MiCA 2 is concerned, at this very point, I don't really believe it is needed, but we will see how the open questions get resolved. And if at the end the idea that legislative action is needed will prevail. But I'm certainly looking forward to everything that will happen this year because it will be an exciting year.
There's going to be a lot of new things we'll learn for sure. So yeah, like that is very helpful. Thank you. And maybe I'm going back to what you mentioned at the beginning of our discussion as well. More clarity. So hopefully we will get that through enforcement actions or through opinions from different NCAs, etc., discussions and dialogue. But there's also something that recently happened, which was really interesting. Basically, the Payment Services Directive, as you discussed, the one that we have today, and that is EUCI applicable, will also be. I think there will be also more clarity on this because, as we have heard, the application of that has been some kind of frozen for this moment, to our understanding, when it comes to the application to the crypto assets, service provider, other services, and transactions. So this is also something that we'll see being negotiated. As just for our listeners, we are currently negotiating the new version of this directive and the regulation. So it is going to be a very important thing, especially if we think about the money tokens, the stable coins that we are using as payments, and how those are, I think it's really one of the most important applications of crypto assets at the moment. Certainly more clarity will be welcome as well.
Yeah, I agree. I think that this no action letter that was proposed by the Commission was very welcome. Also, the logic that they employed within the letter, I fully agree with it, and certainly look forward to what will happen during the PSD3 negotiations. And I hope that the answers will be clarified.
It is going to be a new, I think, area and a new kind of way of engaging for the crypto industry as well. Because until now, we have mostly discussed in Brussels with the Parliament, the Commission, and the Council, of course. But right now, really, the main stars of the process are the national competent authorities. And I think that, in a way, trying to follow what is happening within the national competent authorities, also share information as much as we can, but at the same time, looking into new potential versions of regulations directive as the payment services providers. One, there's going to be also a lot of work within the anti-money laundering regulation and the directive when it comes to crypto assets within the secondary technical process. So there's a lot of, I think, interesting things awaiting for us in this year and in the whole mandate with the new commission. And very much, I think, personally looking forward to see where the new commission will go and what are going to be the priorities going forward.
That will be very interesting thing to see. I agree with that.
I think those are all my questions that I have prepared for today. If you want to add anything in general, please, the last comments. I don't think we have any questions for now, but I would like to give you the last 2 minutes.
Well, my last comment would be that even though there is some confusion about MiCA, I think that overall MiCA entering into force is a very welcome development, and that MiCA will benefit us all, even though we have a bit of confusion. I believe that this will be resolved, and that in the end, we all will be better off because of MiCA. From crypto asset service providers and investors or retail clients.
That was the aim. This is why we have it. So thank you so much for joining us. I wish you and everyone that is listening to us a very happy new year, happy holidays. And we are looking forward to see and work with all of you in the next year and looking into understanding better how this MiCA story will evolve.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Bye.